Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video. Wow, what a busy week it's been with news and developments for Giga Texas. We'll start off here. This Twitter feed from Drew Baglino shows that he was visiting the Megapacks site, shows that it's nearly completed as we've seen in the last several videos. And it's 125 megawatt, 250 megawatt hour installation. And as you can see, he looks like he's pretty pleased with the progress. Next, let's discuss these two images that came out of the second quarter financial results deck that Tesla revealed on Wednesday. Now, this image shows you the Cybertruck line. This is the general assembly line, and you can see the Cybertruck up on one of the equipment underneath the car cover. This image is of the Cybertruck body in white. And both of these images give us some very valuable information specifically about where these were taken in Giga Texas. As we've discussed in several previous videos, Giga Texas is laid out with a grid coordinate system. And in this system, each of the columns is listed with a number and a letter so you can identify where you're located. Now, taking a look at this image again, if you look up onto one of the columns on the upper left of the photos, we can see that it's listed as L70. And in the diagram, this gives you an idea of exactly where this is located in the factory. Now, an interesting thing to look at is this section of the South Stamping 2 that is open at the south end right now is located here, fairly close to where this image was taken. Now, there's a lot of interesting details in this image, but right now I wanted to blow up a section, look at the column underneath where you see L70. These are joiner bands, and this is where two columns are joined together with bolts. And this indicates that it's on the second floor. And I know that because here's an image I took during Cyber Rodeo. This is the ground floor of the General Assembly. You can see how the column looks as it's at the floor. However, this section of the building, when it's being constructed, you can see those joiner plates and also the bolts. And this is exactly what we see in that image. So very interesting to note. Now, if we go back to the other image, you can tell that although there's no grid coordinates that I can see, the beams on the top here indicate that this is on the ground floor. So very interesting that Cybertruck is being produced on both the second and the first floor, at least in these images. As if all of that is not enough, yesterday Jeff Roberts was able to capture the delivery of yet another massive bridge crane. This one's destined for the Stamping 2 at the south end of the building where the wall panels are removed currently. So another very interesting delivery and another indication of big things to come for Giga Texas. And lastly, to commemorate the 3 years of construction here at Giga Texas, the Quad Squad, that's Jeff, Randy, Jack, and myself, put together a series of videos, and we discussed about our thoughts over the last 3 years. The first video has already come out. The next one with Jack premieres on Saturday, the 22nd of July. Jeff's will premiere on Sunday, the 23rd of July, and Randy's will premiere on Monday, the 24th of July. And so check those out for a lot of great information. So there you have it. As I said, a very busy week with lots of information, a lot of developments going on here at the site as well. So I hope that you enjoyed this intro. So now let's get into the drone and fly around the site and see what's going on today. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. Well, good early morning here on Friday at Giga Texas. There's a lot of activity across a lot of the entire site. So today we're starting off Tesla Road on the west side at the intersection with Farm to Market 973. You can tell this is the section that Tesla Road is being widened, and they're going to be improving this intersection. Also, along this south side of the existing Tesla Road, they've finished trenching and installing steel corrugated pipe for water management system. They're still doing some work here on the grade, and there's some pipe segments remaining, as you can tell. But otherwise, the road work and the preparation for expanding Tesla Road on this side of the highway is really coming along quickly. This intersection on the left hand of the side of the screen, and as we look to the south, is where the new north-south road on this west side is being constructed, and it extends from Tesla Road all the way down to River Road, and it will basically give a second access point into this area for trucks and other vehicles. Now, this entire side of the highway is permitted as the West Support Facility. Right now, we can see that some of this is being used for material staging here. The white tents are also in the area where they have some of the landscaping materials and also just other materials and containers that are being used around the entire site. But the rest of the site is being developed on the south end, and we'll take a look at that later in the video. But right now, let's get ready to cross over the highway, and we'll resume the flight next to the battery cell production section. And that's where we are right now. I'll bring the drone down. We'll fly to the north along this side of the building. I want to show you that even more deliveries are being made here for the 4680 production cell portion of the factory. You can see the crate, which has been here for a while, but the white item is actually new, and they're sitting on SPMTs, or self-propelled modular transporters. They'll be using this to move it inside this building. Now, also a very interesting development is inside this building on the ground floor, they are doing some new construction, or they're continuing construction that's been going on inside this building. They've been reconfiguring some of the ground slab. They've been adding a lot more steel components and building out this part of the factory. In fact, you can see some of the steel parts here on the ground waiting to be moved in. They've been accumulating to some degree, but I have seen trucks delivering into that open door a lot of the steel components. I've also seen pump trucks and cement trucks, or concrete trucks, going into that area as well. Now, as we pass by these two loading platforms, in the middle you can see these black items. Those are, I think, frame mounts that are used to move bodies of vehicles around. Those may be, based on their side, they may be related to Cybertruck, but I really can't tell. But there's a number of those that are sitting on the ground. We can also see that crews are continuing to apply the white stain here now on the casting machine structure northeast corner, and they're going to be moving towards the middle of the building to complete adding all of this on the north side of the building, and then they will continue to progress around this corner on this angled section of the casting machine structure and continue that white stain application. As we come around this corner of the casting machine structure, just another view again of the conduit and all of the installation on that widened apron next to the berm on the left-hand side of the screen, and how this section looks today. Quite a bit of the castings again on that east side, temporarily stored here until they're moved over into the body in white for the construction of the vehicle bodies. I'm going to pop up onto the roof here, give you kind of a lower altitude view of how it looks today with all the solar panels, many of the exhaust vents and ports on the roof. And again, on the left-hand side of the screen at the bottom, you can see those small gray rectangular frames. You can also see on the left some of the feet that are being used to install those onto the ground. Some of them have been installed already. Some of them are waiting to be installed. As we approach here, just past these two exhaust pipes on the left, you can see a few of those frames already mounted with those feet. And the crews continue to add these along this section of the roof, and they're working towards the south. You can also see these brightly colored white vent bases that have been added recently as well. As we pass over the roof and come down onto this parking lot section, this is where the casting racking systems were temporarily located. Many of them have been moved away. We can see on the ground these open vaults and the workers there. This is where the conduit extends from the northeast corner of casting all the way up to the new electrical switch yard and also the Megapack site. So it looks like they're preparing to probably install the wiring now, since all the conduit is completed, and bring that up through the conduit up to where the Megapack and the electrical switchyard is located so that they can start wiring this section together. As we cross over Tesla Road, interesting developments on the right-hand side of the screen. You can see another Megapack being delivered by this truck. And then ahead of us on the upper right-hand side of the screen, 3 more Megapacks are being delivered this morning. Now, as we cross over this material staging yard and where the workshops and the trailers are, I'll try to give you a view. Sun's a little bit difficult, but you can see these 3 more Megapacks arriving. So with these 4 Megapacks arriving this morning, plus what they already have installed, right now at the time of this video, 61 of the eventual 68 Megapacks are now on site and getting ready for installation. And as we discussed in the video intro, Drew Baglino was here just a few days ago and put out a tweet message showing that he was inspecting the site and he was pretty pleased with the progress, talking about how this is coming to an end pretty soon, and they'll have all the Megapacks on site and installed, which is great to see. And with the images that I'm showing you here, you can get an idea of just how close to being completed they are. Now here on the north end, where all the steel and the electrical poles are installed, we can see the crews are really busy in this trench installing some pretty large conduit. And this is going to extend from this steel electrical system here on the north under the ground over to where that concrete underground vault at the south end of the electrical switchyard is being installed. And I'll give you some closer views in just a little bit, but I wanted to give you a look back at the Megapack installation, how it looks today. And you can also see in the top of the screen the 4 being delivered right now. As I continue to reposition the drone next to these steel structures, some of the things that stand out, that concrete slab has probably finished its curing, so we should start seeing a structure soon. The extensions to the steel poles have been added, and then here's a good view again of the workers in that trench installing some pretty large conduit extending to the east along this trench underneath the power lines over to the south end of the electrical switchyard. And here's a good view as I bring the drone up a little, and you can see how that trench work is progressing right now. It's a pretty substantial amount of electrical systems and cabling that's going to connect the 2 sites. And as I pull away, this is a good overview of how this entire site looks today. On the right, you can see those V-type circuit breakers still have not been installed yet, but we should see that pretty soon. I'll bring the drone up and give you a bird's eye view of the Megapack installation site as it looks today. Great views from here of that electrical conduit connecting to the 2 sites, and also the underground concrete vault and its progress that has happened in the last few days. Now, what we see is a lot of the forms have been installed along the what will be walls. The rebar has already been placed, and the crews are working on some of those scaffolding platforms to ensure that the forms are all ready to go. It looks like the south wall and part of the east wall is completed as far as the form work, and they're going to be working on that north wall next to that retaining wall that you see with all those concrete segments. And as I pull away, this gives you a good overall view of how this site looks as the work continues, and also the temporary electrical switchyard and its proximity to the new permanent electrical switchyard. So let's proceed over to the cathode plant and take a look at the activity on that part of the site today. As I bring you to the far northeast, what I wanted to show here in this clearing is the old hill that used to be here where all of the center dump trucks and the excavator are working. is almost completely gone now, and much of this dirt that they're excavating and being put into the trucks is going to one of two locations. It's either going to the west side of the highway where that west support facility grade is being finalized, and some of it is also going to the east side of Stamping over where that multi-level parking garage is under construction right now. But this gives you a good view of just how much of that hill and how much of this area has transformed. As we've proceeded closer to the plant, just showing you these stainless steel tanks still waiting for installation. A lot more materials. We also see some of those large spools of that orange kind of flexible conduit waiting for installation as well. And as we approach the north end of the cathode building, a couple things I want to show you is on the right hand side of the screen, all of those steel corrugated pipes for the underground water management system, more of the trenching in the middle for what will eventually be the lift station and for plumbing to go to that part. Also the north end of the building with the receiving doors installed, and also that the two small walls for kind of the retaining around those receiving doors and the windows on the top of the screen. The cell test lab has had more of the work on the ground where the underground steel corrugated pipe has been installed. And then here, this sort of interesting bowl-shaped concrete structure is getting a lot more of the forms on the north and south end for those walls around where the rebar has been installed. You can also tell that there's going to be rebar walls and going down the middle of the section, and also in the middle where you can see the drains. It looks like it's all framed in and more of the concrete has been poured in the last few days. And here's a good view looking at some of the workers and how they are preparing for the formwork for these walls, and just generally what this shape and structure looks like today. It's still a very interesting structure, and I'm kind of curious to figure out what it's for. We can also see that the structure here is getting the slab redone. The yellow moisture barriers in place, some of the trenching for what will eventually be some walls, I presume. Also in the middle where the white pipes are for probably a draining system. And it just generally looks similar, although slightly different than the original construction that we saw being built and then ripped back up for this rework. In the middle of these two wall segments, more of the rebar, more of that moisture barrier as it's continuing to the south end. And also we can see that the forms for these walls are being placed on either side of that underground vault, and a lot of the rebar on top of that underground vault for a lot of concrete that will be poured here in the middle. Now, some of my viewers had talked previously that they suspected these walls maybe extend south to incorporate this underground vault, and it looks like that's exactly what has happened. So very interesting to see how this rework and the replanning of this structure is progressing, and I hope that you enjoy these close-in views. Near the building, we can see that there's a lot of these red items. Some of them are part of the platforms, and then some of them I'm not exactly sure what they are. It may be other equipment that's going to be installed associated with the platforms. The 4 tanks on the left still have not moved, and on the ground where the electrical conduit is being placed into that very trenched section, it just continues to see some progress there as well. And as I pull away, just to give you a good view of the east side, and this gives you an idea of how it looks today with the state of construction. So I'm going to fly closer to the building. We'll fly over the roof, and we'll come back down on the west side and take a look at the chiller plant. Stopping first here at the die shop, I wanted to just show you how this north end appears. That concrete apron with the gantry crane rails, still just waiting for installation of the rail system. As we pan towards the chiller system, we can just get a good view of how it looks today. There's just so much complexity here. It's really kind of hard to judge what has changed from a day-to-day basis. But what it is clear is that there's continued a lot of effort to get this assembled, tested, and ready for operation, and very much so on this end of the building. I'm going to pan the drone right down to the ground. I just want to show you that the 2 concrete pads now have been poured, and I would expect to see some sort of equipment installed here in the near future. As we fly down the alleyway, I'm going to drop down lower altitude. I just want to show you that these open vaults at the bottom of the screen, they've had most of the electrical wires run through the conduits now, and as you can see here with the spools, looks like they're preparing to run the conduit both to the east and then over towards the west along the entire conduit system that parallels Tesla Road over to the electrical switch yard. Now here at the north staging lot, several different things I just want to point out to you. First, the TKS paint system items still waiting here. There's some new deliveries on the left-hand side of the screen, are kind of interesting. Still waiting to see these moved into the building for installation. The old house area has had quite a bit of the grade, although not all of it removed, as you can tell. And interestingly enough, that sort of monument that was here from many years ago, kind of looks like a planter, is still there and hasn't been moved. This section is being transformed as an overflow lot for employee vehicles. And as we've seen in past videos, sometimes the parking lot can get quite full. There's a very interesting delivery on this truck. The scale, you can tell by looking at the cab of the truck. I'm not sure if that's related to the TKS system or if it's some other system. I'm going to pull away towards the east to just give you a good overall view of this side of the site. I don't normally get a chance to show you, and I hope that you enjoyed these views from this distance away from the main factory. From this part of the east side, I'm going to fly and get a little lower down to show you the recycling location and how it looks today. Quite a bit of items on the left-hand side being recycled actively right now, and you can see that in place. The large structure is kind of a workshop in the foreground, and then you can see where the receiving bins and some of the trailers to take some of that recycled items away for recycling off-site. As we approach the new car transportation and staging lot, one thing is all of these, what I think are superchargers in the bottom right, still haven't changed their location or been used anywhere in quite some time. The new car staging and transportation lot looks exceptionally busy for Giga Texas here today. A lot of vehicles, particularly at the bottom of the screen, but many trucks picking up vehicles. I actually saw several of them heading towards the south today on the highway, which is very unique. Here at the new car staging and transportation lot, we can see the activity here, especially near that tent and the superchargers. But one of the things that caught my eye I want to show you is here next to the east secondary entrance. Take a look. The mobile supercharger has been placed here on that trailer. And there's, very interesting to speculate on why that might be or what it's for. Also in the foreground in front of that, you can see where there's that trench work where they're continuing to work on some of that steel corrugated pipe, which is related to the underground rainwater management system here. Through the windows, you can also see quite a bit of robots that have been stored here waiting for continued assembly onto the various body-in-white and general assembly production lines. Here on the east side, this section that's continuing to be graded and prepared in the area that we know is permitted, and we've seen the map from Tesla showing that the new car, or the multi-level parking garage will be built. Interestingly enough, it looks like there's work continuing to kind of grade this down on the left-hand side into that pond, which kind of suggests that whatever is going to be constructed or used here is going to be into this section. We also see this very large pile of dirt right now. Again, some of this is coming from that northeast corner that we talked about earlier. On the east side of the stamping machine structure, I'll zoom in, give you an idea of just the activity, a lot of the materials and vehicles that are here. Still, all of these items in white are waiting for installation in stamping 2. It does look like it's been thinned out as far as the platform components, but some of the larger items are still waiting for installation. As I pull back to the southeast, in the middle of the screen, the work to continue to extend the roadway in this intersection is underway, and also it looks like some final preparation work where that rebar section and possibly concrete has been poured in the last few days. This is a really good high altitude view of the entire south end and that open section of the building. And I'll start here first by looking at River Road on the left-hand side of the cyber pond and how it looks today. The trench work in the middle continues to be there. It looks like some conduit has been installed. You can see some of those pipes sticking up out of the trench. None of the materials are stored just south of that road, and so that continues. And then, of course, here, the rebar cages that are going to be used for the eventual footings for this new building construction. Also, those black boxes on the left, I think those are to frame in the rebar sections for bases of columns. And so it'll be something I'll watch and see if those are actually employed in that way. Here next to the opening section, you can see the steel items on the ground waiting for installation, but more of them have been installed now around this section. And this is being configured to be able to host the large bridge cranes that have been delivered here that we talked about in the intro, and I'll give you a view of that shortly. I was trying to look inside here to see if I could get a glimpse of where half of that bridge crane was on the ground, but as you can tell, the sun was just really not favorable for these views today, so I really couldn't conclude one way or the other where that second part of that bridge crane that was delivered yesterday went, but one half of it still remains here on the south side with that truck. And I'll try to cut down lower and give you a good view of the second half of the bridge crane. And the way the bridge crane work, there's two of these kind of large beams that rest onto the bridge crane rails, and then between them there's a race that has all of the equipment and the wires that will make the crane actually work. So it looks to me like with this worker here, they're getting ready to move this section inside as well. So I would expect not to see this out here tomorrow. As we approach the southwest corner, this second floor platform, looks like there's been a few changes. There's kind of this covered section. There's also, as you can tell, items being moved inside this part of the building through this temporary platform. And on the left-hand side with this truck, you can see it looks like electronic cabinets possibly are being unloaded to be moved inside that section of the building. I also want to show you this material staging location. Looks to me like the crews are cleaning this up now, so maybe this excess items are no longer needed, and that would be a great sign for the interior assembly line process. As we crossed over to the highway, I wanted to give you a good view here of the West Support Facility and the grade work that is underway. Quite a bit of activity here to transform this site into what I believe is going to be the new car staging and transportation lot. Now, I have talked to some of the transport drivers in the past, and they are telling me that this is where that's going to be at some point once this is completed. And it makes a lot of sense that they need to have a larger site if they're going to be producing both the Model Ys and the Cybertrucks, as that east side is just not suitable. And also with all the employees coming on, that east side parking lot needs to have expansion. So I think this whole area will be where that we'll see the new cars being moved and transported at some point in the future. You can also tell as we were flying around there, a lot of the road work in the middle here is really progressing. This material staging location is just becoming packed with materials and containers as well, and pretty much the entire surface now. And then as we cross back over this new road dividing these two sections, we can see that there's quite a bit of piles of dirt here that are being put together into possibly for the grade on this area, or maybe that northern section that we looked at. And then the last remaining portions of the concrete debris that has been moved over here many months ago and has been being cleaned up ever since. It looks like this is all that is left, which is great to see because this will allow this construction to continue. And this is a great view looking to the north of that new road, how it goes right through the middle of the section, and how we have all of these various flat areas that'll eventually be part of this west support facility. The large parking lot on the left is where the contractors park right now that are working on the construction of Giga Texas, and of course the west warehouse on wheels here. So that's a really good, I think, wide-ranging view of Giga Texas on this Friday and the third year of construction of Giga Texas. I hope you enjoyed these discussions and the video, and I hope you have a great weekend. Take care.